Ian, it's all yours.
Excellent. All right, let me get my timer started. Right on. All right. Hello, folks. My name's Ian. I work on a plugin called Katello to the project Foreman, which you may have heard of. I've been a developer for I don't know, six, maybe 7 years now. I work really closely with the Pulp team because Katello is all about serving content to your host that you have registered in Foreman. I'll give a little bit of background, and then I'm just going to talk about some updates, some updates related to Katello, which by extension then relate to Pulp, and yeah, hopefully people will get interested and see if there's some questions. There will be a lot to breeze through, so in case you have more questions later, my details are also here. You can catch me on Matrix and whatnot, and we can continue the conversation offline. All right. So just basic, very high level. What's the stack? So Foreman plugin is an application that lets you manage the life cycle of machines, virtual machines, bare metal machines, etc. You have a nice inventory to see all of them. You can register them into Foreman. You can provision machines with them, configure them with things like Ansible, etc. Katello brings essentially like patch management to that story. So with a combination of Pulp, which lets us sync repositories and send that content out to our hosts, and then we also have another service called Candlepin, which deals with subscriptions type stuff. Since Foreman and Katello are the upstream to Red Hat Satellite, Candlepin makes sure that you have access to the repositories that you should, the subscriptions, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, and then Foreman by itself, the big three things it does: provisioning, configuration, and to some extent, monitoring. Now, in Katello, what are we using for Pulp right now? Well, we've recently upgraded to Core 385. We're always a little bit behind. We upgrade once a year. We try to stay as up to date as possible. And then we have some of the varying plugin versions we're using. The plugins that we use, Container, RPM, Ansible, Python, Deb, and OS Tree. So in Katello, some new features that we've had since 2024, since the last time that we talked at PulpCon, our container integration has had a lot of new features added. OCI Flatpaks being a big one. Bootable containers, if you've been hearing about boot C, image mode machines, all of that. We've been having a lot of integrations there. Our container registry has an experimental UI update now to get it a bit closer to like a Quay type experience. And then we've also introduced load balanced container registry support for our smart proxies, as they're called, which the best way to explain a smart proxy is you'll have your main Foreman in Katello, which has its own Pulp doing its thing. But if you need to expand globally, you can install these things called smart proxies, which also have Pulp running beside them, or it can have Pulp running beside them. So you can serve content in other places to get your data closer to your hosts. Besides that, we've also have, there's a nice structured app migration that Quirin from ATIX implemented along with his team. We also have rolling content views, which also something implemented by ATIX, which is one of a company that we work very closely with on the Katello side, Foreman side. And we've also been trying to deal with some of the Pulp 4 related work. So we started having PRNs indexed into our database, and I'll go into a bit of detail on each of these. And also, if anyone has a question, just do the hand raising thing, and I'll be listening, and I can get those questions answered. All right, so firstly, OCI Flatpaks. Flatpak support was added to Pulp Container some time back with an index and all of that, which is lovely. On the Katello side, we're more or less done integrating with that. We have a nice UI workflow where you can create a remote that points to a Flatpak registry. We can scan that to get all of the content. Samir talked about this yesterday. And then you can mirror those and turn them into repositories. Now, note, this is for OCI Flatpaks only right now. We are looking for contributions if people are interested in the OS tree style ones from FlatHub. Here's just some pictures of the UI for people who missed Samir's talk yesterday. This is what it looks like when you scan your repositories. They'll pop up like this. This is when I scan the Fedora registry, and you can click that mirror button, and then it automatically creates a repo for you in Pulp with all of the details so that you can then sync it and then post those out. We do build on top of Pulp's Flatpak integration. We actually send out our own proxies. We serve our own proxy of the Flatpak registry that's customized per host, because in Katello, hosts consume content based on different, well, we call them lifecycle environments. They're different categories. So like your development machines, your testing machines, your production machines, they'll all get different subsets of content, which is backed essentially by Pulp repository versions. And we do fancy things to distribute them via different paths. And this just makes sure that the hosts that should get this specific content get it. Bootable containers have had a bunch of updates. This is just yet another reason why we think the container registry, backed by Pulp, of course, is going to be seeing even more use in Katello. With these bootable containers, you're now provisioning machines from containers. So users can sync some bootc container into Katello, serve it out to their host as they're provisioning. They can install their content directly from those containers, which is awesome. And so we've added some UI for showing information about these image mode machines. Like this is a card you'll see in our host UI, for example. You can see the running image there. It's this stream 10 CentOS bootc image. You can see some data about the digest, stuff like that. We've also added remote execution support for installing transient packages. These bootc machines are immutable, so you have to install packages with this special user overlay, which essentially boils down to passing a transient flag into DNF to get them installed. And this is just a little bit of our UI for showing, you can see all of the different images that are running in your ecosystem, which is just a nice way to detect if you have drift. Because if you have a bunch of different images that are all supposed to be stream 10, well, that means they're all over the place and you need to upgrade and get to the latest tag. So our new container UI is something we've also revamped. Previously it was very, very old Angular. It's becoming a security issue, honestly, in our environment. So these pages are being updated to nice React with Patternfly, which looks very similar to what you just saw in the Pulp UI. So we have a new way of expanding these images that you've synced into Katello. For a little bit of background, when you sync a repo in Katello, it syncs in Pulp, and then we index a lot of that information from Pulp into our own database so you can see it here quickly. Pagination, filtering, sorting, all of that kind of thing. In a way, Katello is a UI to Pulp as well. You can see things like labels and annotations. We've also paired this up with the booted images page that I previously showed. We have a nice new manifest details page. And one thing that I like about this a lot is we show all of the different repositories where this image is distributed. And then we have a path in the bottom right that you can just copy and paste. So if you want to get the version that's in a certain content view, you can just like copy that. Because your host might only be able to consume from one of these, because we ensure that your host only has access to the content that it should. So you go down there, copy and paste the correct one for your host if you want to, and then go from there. It's also handy for debugging. If one of your distributions is broken for some reason, you can see if one's working and the other is not. And we do intend to add even more information. I know Pulp has even more data we can show, like architecture, compressed image size. We want to get that in here at some point. Okay, I mentioned the load balanced registry. This is a small thing we added. However, it's nice. We already had a paradigm today for load balancing in Katello with smart proxies. So if you have a ton of hosts, you can have multiple smart proxies set up, and you just point to the load balancer, and then it redirects you to the least loaded pulp, essentially. But it didn't work for container content because we have our own container registry that we use as a proxy because we have our own access rules. And what's very interesting here is, so it's a redirect to pulp, right? And it didn't work before because the redirect was to one specific pulp instance. So we had to make a change. Again, it's very small. We had to make a change to change this redirect location to be the load balancer, and then it correctly redirects you to a pulp. But that enabled a whole new option here for having tons of clients access our registry instead of just a few. Well, not just a few, but you know what I mean. It enables massive environments. And then another thing, so I'm talking about this information I got from Claren, but structured app by default is also a new thing coming out in Katello 4.19, which is going to be GAing imminently. For folks who use Debian content previously, you might know that the content was published in kind of a unique structure. The release files were listed under dist/default, and it didn't match what you would typically see upstream. Now, and I feel like it's been really done over a couple of years, maybe a year, the structured app feature was introduced. So you could test this out for a while. It wasn't by default, but now it's going to be. The big thing to call out here is for Katello 4.19, since it is default, there will be a migration. So it's recommended that you upgrade before you actually do this 4.19. It depends on how sensitive you are to downtime. And one benefit to this as well, there's reportedly a performance increase because how the structure was done before, there was some data duplication going on, and also fewer bugs. It sounded like this previous unique structure caused some interesting behavior just because it was sort of unexpected by clients. But now your clients should see what they would see in the normal upstream repositories. Okay, now some things for the future development. A lot of these are going to be, some of these are similar to what I just mentioned before. I mentioned that for the bootable containers, we had support for translate installing packages. The next thing that we're working on now is tracking these transient packages that you have installed in your system. If you are a sysadmin and you have a lot of these transient packages installed in your bootable, it has so many names, in your bootc machines, I'll call them this time, bootc, image mode, bootable containers. That kind of drift is dangerous because when you reboot these machines, because of their immutable nature, all of those changes will go away, and they'll come back up matching the container image that they're provisioned with, or at least that they're consuming from. So in our UI here, we'll be showing a way to see all of these transient images, and also a way to copy and paste a simple run command, so you could paste that into your container file if you want to persist these transient packages. And we are looking for future ideas about this integration. If there's anyone out there kind of diving into this whole new topic of bootc machines, we're really looking for feedback. And then this is just a little something about the UI. Show this new column, these transient packages. Pulp domains in Katello is a big one. We know with Pulp 4, domains are required by default. Really, the big question is how Katello might benefit. At least at the start, I think a huge benefit could be that people using Katello could use Pulp directly, because today Katello assumes full access to Pulp. Because we delete things, and if you have a repo there, when we do orphan cleanup, we'll clean that out. However, if you create your own domain, yeah, you could use your own Pulp. You could use Pulp that Katello is using on your own. Keep things separate. I think that'll be a big benefit. Organizational separation is a big one too. However, we would really have to build that in because our whole role system is pretty ingrained. Oh, Matthias?
Yeah, sorry, I have a question not specifically to you. You said that with
Matthias, I think we may have just lost you.
Oh yeah, so your voice cut out.
Yep. That feels like a network disconnect.
That's like,
oh wait, there you are. You're back.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear anything I said?
I got
No.
you got as far as pulp, and then everything stopped.
Okay, sorry.
Let's try again.
So the question is not necessarily to you, but you said that domains will be required with Pulp 4. The thing I definitely recall is that we will require all plugins to support domains. I'm not sure we always have it switched on.
I think with Pulp v4, you don't have to have it, but with Pulp 4, the notional goal is domains will always be turned on, because one of the problems it's not a problem, it's a maintenance thing, is right now the code base has to deal with, do you have domains on, then one set of things happens, and if you don't have domains on, a different set of things happens, and that just increases the opportunity for bugs and data to be wrong in more than one place. But that's a 2026 decision.
Yeah. So the assumption I'm making is that it will happen, which
well, that's a safe assumption for your side.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I never want to stop you from using them if you want to.
And yeah, and the idea of having people use Katello's Pulp directly is very nice, because I know people have asked about that in the past, and it's annoying when our orphan cleanup, which is separate from yours, deletes repositories that you've just created. Yeah. Anyway, apologies if I brought up a potential fact that might not be a fact yet.
No, that's exactly what these meetings are for, is to get stuff brought up.
Good. All right, I'll scoot along here. Another thing that we're wanting to do is finally start generating our own pulp bindings, which I'm being very noisy about, because we just found out all of the bindings are affected with a certain bug that I need to work around now. We just got lucky up until this point. Wow, it's amazing. But now we got unlucky, and I have a whole discussion on here. If anyone wants to comment, I need help getting it prioritized, honestly. I'm starting to push it harder, but soon. It should be soon. And I think we'll probably be using the Open API spec on the fly, probably. But we need to look into that. Another thing that is on our horizon potentially is, where can I vote that up? Yeah, Matthias, I would say this link here, I'll paste this, I'll paste these slides soon. This link will have what you want. But yeah, anyway, I think at some point in the future, we'll probably start reporting vulnerabilities on container images. At least this is something I'm trying to push. I'm not going to jump too much into it here. We're running low on time. However, this could be very interesting with Pulp in the future. I know y'all have vulnerability related stuff, like in your code that's in some sort of state related to like the service, the Pulp service stuff. I think it would be nice to sync up at some point on like our designs on this and then carry forward. But I wanted to go over this before I run out of time, because I think this is more interesting to y'all. Just some data from our users. I scraped up what I can that relate to Pulp. I noticed most of our issues that we get related to Pulp in our community support really are related to Pulp RPM or Pulp Deb. I think that's just because of what people are using. With Katello, usually they're environment-specific problems. Occasionally, and honestly, frequently, it's related to strange upstream metadata issues, things we have to help them work around, or, oh, this repo is doing this thing that's incorrect. So really, nothing shocking there, and nothing huge to report, frankly, to Pulp. RFEs oftentimes are about content customization, which I know is a broad term, but also disk saving. For example, we want to export this repository with fewer package versions. That's like a flavor of something that I see. I want to do this, but with less content. Also, they want to see things like sync this specific content to my smart proxy. I know that's more of a Katello term, but it seems they really want to have a fine-grained tuning of what kind of content ends up either on a pulp that they're syncing from another pulp or what's ending up on their disk, which at the end of the day, a user will want fine-grained customization. That makes sense. But I think if we start seeing more of these, we might want to point them in a direction that's... Sorry, go ahead, Grant.
I was going to say this is been a constant over the years, but especially in the RPM, and I'm assuming the Deb ecosystems, the difficulty that we have run into in the past is users want very fine-grained control over their content without understanding the implications of dependency hell. And so they fine-grained control their content, and then their clients say DNF install whatever, and it doesn't install because they've carefully removed the dependencies of the thing that they wanted. And the only real problem with that is that Sev ones come to Katello or Satellite or Pulp as, why did you let me break my repository?
Right.
And we do, with a fair amount of success, have responded with, but you took the content out that you are currently being asked to put back in. And users go off and do that. But it adds quite a bit at the support level, because the folk that are doing content curation today in 2025 are not the Linux admins with 20 years experience that they were in 2002, and they shouldn't be. It's just not the way the world works anymore. So that's, I think, the one of the big things that has caused us to kind of drag our feet on letting you at sync time, especially have an include list or an exclude list, is the opportunity to make your everything else in that repository uninstallable is large because they're generally connected. Now, again, also in 2025, our repositories are more and more often becoming bags of unconnected RPMs, where that include and exclude list makes way more sense. I don't need the firmware for every single graphics card NVIDIA has ever made on my system is a perfectly reasonable thing. So there's a tension there, and that's where we need the input from the community about which side of that tension should we fall on, and how do we control the maintenance, the support burden on our side when people shoot themselves in the foot or in the head and then are mad at the Pulp team for letting them do that.
Yeah, that's a difficult battle. I mean, one thing that I'm struggling with is we just need to make sure, especially developers, are on the same, they deliver the same like speech, I guess, when this kind of issue comes up. They know to look, instead of saying, oh, this is a bug, we have to fix this. It's, what did you do? What did you remove? And then know to ask that. That might make it a bit easier to accept more of these features, but yeah, we have plenty of places in Form when people shoot themselves in the foot too. It's a pain.
Yep. Well, requests like this, when we decide, or anyone decides, maybe somebody in the community wants to submit a PR for this, when we add the ability to be more fine-grained, that has to come along with a debugging tool that will notice that you've been more fine-grained, because that's the first step in alleviating the support problem, is making it easy to go, oh, the upstream has 20% more RPMs and the ones I'm missing are all up there. Let me go get them now, kind of thing would make it a lot more palatable, I think.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No.
This is taking up all your time.
I could have a talk about this topic, I'm sure. Now, I mean, on that, what we were just mentioning, well, actually, this is a bit of a separate route. A lot of people are asking, we see for content duplication. Now, we were talking about deduplication, or no, we were talking about less content before. Now we want more content. For people who have multiple installations, they do want to clone them. And I know we have the Pulp replicator. We still need to look at that and see if it could help in any of these cases. It's just difficult in Katello and Foreman because there's just so much specific stuff to sync that's outside of Pulp. But anyway, that's one topic that a lot of people have been asking about. Now, just really two more interesting things before I close out. We broke dependency solving on our end at one point, accidentally for everyone. And a lot of people complained, which I asked before if we could turn off this stuff by default, but then I find out people are using it. And I have a quote here from a user about why they use depth solving. And it's the kind of quote where I think there's probably a way we could get them to still get off of it. But people are using it in the wild, and I think we have to keep that in mind. And I mean, figure out, I think we need to reach out to them and do more teaching about how to get away from it. Still, I don't think we see a real use case that they can't get away from with all the bugs and the slowness and the pain. And then lastly, speaking of things, we do have users on OS Tree, which I know is always a question. Folks are using Foreman Katello to manage Silverblue clients. And whenever we talk about Flatpak with the OCI stuff, now people are asking about FlatHub, which is OS Tree. So I just want to shout that out because I know the OS Tree plugin has been kind of like, it's been revived and kind of put down over and over again, but people are using it. So we'll keep sending it with Katello.
That's cool.
It is. Yeah, I like hearing about this. Okay. I know I went a little over time, but that was just a bunch of Katello updates. I mean, I'm happy to, I can't remember if I'm the last talk of the day. I'm happy to stick around and answer questions, or we can catch up offline.
You are the last talk of the day. We do have a lightning talk for today. Jared wants to give a little presentation there. Jared, if you are okay with delaying, we can give Ian some time to answer questions if people have any.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All righty. Anybody have any questions for Ian? We're over time, but feel free. Oh, there's one, Pedro.
I didn't think I get the last topic about duplication, the feedback from users. Can you talk a bit more about what?
Duplication of content? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally talk about that. I totally rushed through it. So in this particular case, we might have a bunch of users who want to have a satellite, a Foreman, Katello environment, whatever. They want to have like 3 of them, and they want them all to have the same content. Sometimes people say they don't want one particular one to be the source of truth, which is wild. But really, they want the content to match up. They want a host to be able to connect to another one if one content falls down, or if one server falls down, and begin consuming immediately the same content with the same like filtering, essentially. Because in Katello, we take snapshots of content, essentially save old repository versions and distribute them in certain paths. The paths should all be the same. So like duplicating Pulp, that's pretty easy. I think y'all have made that easy. The difficult thing is probably, I don't know, making sure they're distributed in the same manner, but then also all of the Foreman and Katello access stuff, that has to be duplicated, which is the more difficult story. So that's something we have to solve, but I think the Pulp replicator really helps make that easy. There might be some cases where we might ask for some, potential feature requests if we end up going that route. But yeah, we don't have a solid story for this today just because of all the complications, but something the user's asking for.
And this is content duplication across multiple instances of, well, I'm going to say Pulp, but Pulp Katello Foreman. There's a whole different installation sideways from the main one, if you will. It's not duplication of content within a given Pulp instance. Like the same RPM is used in 27 different repositories. Right now, you have one content with that SHA-256 and one artifact. And one of the things, the reason I bring this up, Ian, is we have talked about the artifact absolutely needs to be deduplicated because the RPMs can be large, content can be large, containers, whatever. So that thing on disk needs to be used once in the Pulp instance. But the content object, which is really a database construct, is also deduplicated, but doesn't have quite as much of a need to be. And that causes conflicts, as you'll see if you come to my content labeling talk tomorrow, where you want to have the content be owned, if you will, by multiple users, and it can't be because there is only one. So that's when I saw content duplicated, my immediate thought was, oh, wait, is that? No, it's a different use case than the one that we've been talking about.
I got you, but also a difficult use case and an important one. Yeah.
Other questions,
hopefully
folks?
Hopefully that
Go
cleared
ahead,
things up, Pedro.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, so first, let me stop the recording. Thank you, Ian. That was amazing.
Yeah, thank you.